This sense of instant gratification that has come with the
Mm.
mobile phone and the other devices, that you would
Yeah.
ask a question and you instantly get the answer. It's solely financial, and then we'll try and find some solutions to it. Hello, and welcome back to the Visible Studio, where we meet and explore the spaces between the process, pedagogy, and practice. I'm your host, Dr. Debjani Mukherjee, and today's topic is Art is Not an Extra. I want to begin this with a contradiction. We tell children that they need to be creative, and we tell them that creativity is essential for innovation, problem solving, communication, and especially to be prepared for the world in the future, of the AI world. Well, we tell them also that it is an essential being in no matter in every subject. And yet, in many education systems, the very subjects that nurture these capabilities are increasingly pushed to the edges of the curriculum. So, what if art isn't an extra to education, but one of the ways we learn how to be more human, how to understand ourselves, and more importantly, how to make sense of the world around us? Today, I'm delighted to be joined by someone who has been asking these questions through her work as an artist, a designer, educator, and has been an advocate for art and design education. Tina Scahill is an educator, graphic designer, and, and a multidisciplinary artist whose work bridges design, contemporary art, and education. She's passionate about bringing student-centered creative learning, encouraging young designers to experiment, think critically, and develop their own creative voices. Tina is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, a council member of the National Society for Education in Arts and Design, and an associate artist at the Chapel Art Studio. Her work explores how creativity and design can empower the young youth to questions, challenge them to experiment and to express themselves. Thank you so much, Tina, for joining us today. And I'm so excited, as you can see, for this conversation. So let's start with the very beginning with the topic around that art is an extra. So when did we first start thinking of this? Because I remember when I grew up and the school that I came from, art was an extracurricular activity, and same with sports. So when do you think that art became an extra, and when slowly? I know that some of these education systems are also including art, and we have the STEM and the STEAM coming in. So can you take us a little bit through this journey? Because you've seen this all, in the last 30 years of experience in education.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here. What a question this is. Art is not an extra. It just feels that at this moment in British UK education system, that art has been sidelined, and that's through education policy, ministerial changes, political reasons. And I think essentially we're losing something within our society. And if we're not careful, I really think it's going to be the detriment to the things that hold us as humans. So yes, I too, when I was a young person, I did art, I did drama. My GCSEs had full choices. And now it seems to be that it's only if the course can be fulfilled with more than so many students can that course go ahead. And I've got examples of that from my own young person who's just gone through that system. I don't know, I'll talk about that now, I suppose. My young person wanted to do music at GCSE, and over the whole cohort of a year 9 in the UK, only 5 students wanted to do music. So decided not to run it, even though they have a full-time music teacher. they decided that those 5 students weren't worthy. So when you think about art being an extra, that tells me that the education system is not valuing creativity. And also the breadth of creativity has been kind of like manipulated down to 1 or 2 subjects now. I remember doing textiles and pottery and all of those kind of things. And education is in crisis financially as well. So that's another influencing factor. And secondary schools in particular have sold off all their kilns, all of their infrastructure to allow creativity to happen, and just making it computerized or paper-based, which quite frankly isn't good enough. We need to let children play. And I'm going to call them children, even though they'll be teenagers. But they need to express themselves and do that in a multiple and a variety of ways. And so I think there's a few factors here where art has been sidelined for a number of reasons. I know that my, the lecturers and teachers, there is so much passion in what they do. And I feel like from what I understand, they feel isolated in their situations, because going from having a team of people delivering, you're now down to 1 or 2 people. And art is that kind of subject where, well, I call it art, but I'm talking about all of the arts here. It's a subject where you need that interaction with other people and that creative buzz that you get from having these conversations. And what is that doing to the teachers themselves if there's only 1 or 2 people in a school? So, yeah, that's a big intro.
Oh, wow, yeah. And I'm so glad we spoke about so many different topics now.
Yeah.
So I'll compartmentalize and we'll talk about a little bit about all of that, what you introduced. Yeah. So one is, why is it really important? And then we will slowly move into what are the reasons that the school is or the curriculum is looking into this reconstruction. Is it solely financial? And then we'll try and find some solutions to it. So let's get started from the beginning. So what do you think? Why is art important? Let's just start from the basics.
Oh, yeah. Why is art important?
And you can speak about everything, like any kind of art, music, drama, arts, visual arts, theatre, photography, everything.
Yeah, and I think generally I call it the creative arts, because I think human expression is the basis of being human. And I kind of feel that I've seen cave paintings in Australia and I've seen those representations. There's always been a desire, and I'm not an expert on that topic, but it seems to me there's been a desire to make a mark. In some way in the landscape. It could be, for example, in Canada, there are nukshuks which are built on the shores. They're like stone structures, almost resembling humans on the shoreline. We have always globally wanted to make our mark. So why should we deny that now in our curriculums and our education systems? Why are we physically taking that away from our young people?
And it's also something visual arts is something that the child first expresses through, even before a child would start writing or speaking. Like for my child, she would first start scribbling. So that mark making, that need for expression, and no matter what it is, the judgment comes later. So that need of expression becomes a very important aspect of our being in the world, of existence.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And that contact with, young children get to go outside in nature and even from the factor of picking a flower head, analysing that, looking at it, it's a wonder, isn't it? And that wonder, I think, is possibly being lost. We do it really well in the UK in primary settings, and it's encapsulated within sort of forest school systems, getting children out in nature. It's about that broadening, but all of a sudden at secondary, we kind of stop that.
Yeah, try and make it very structured, right? Compartmentalized.
Yeah. And actually, we all know as grown-ups, the world is not compartmentalized, is it?
Constantly
You're
overlapping.
pulling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I might be inspired by something I see and do a painting. I might have a conversation, and all of a sudden, kind of ideas are sparking, and I'm thinking about stuff. And I know I'm an educator, and and that might be slightly different for me. But you can't tell me that children and adults out there aren't making connections. They just don't realise that is part of being a creative person. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that way, adults and children, we're not very different. We just been
No.
more tuned to becoming and following the structures, doing it in a specific way that is expected.
Yeah, exactly. I think this morning I was investigating the quote that keeps being bounded around. By all accounts, Picasso said something about children,
Yeah, we're
that's not
all a
fit.
children until and unless we are, we
Yeah,
go out
yeah,
of being creative, right?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that
It's
kind of
something
theme.
around that, yes.
Yes, yeah. And and it's really interesting because there's no actual proof that Picasso actually said that.
Yeah,
But I
yes.
like the idea of it. I like the idea that actually we are in our education systems, in our societies, perhaps we're just devaluing that play element. We're devaluing the fact that we can be playful. And I see that as being quite an important part of how I deliver my education, how I do my own practice. I play with materials, and then something comes from it. And then I can put my ideas into that. It's not a, here it is, I'm going to do it, that's it. It comes out of something else. And I think that's part of where I talk about, I'm talking about cave art. I feel that's probably what our ancestors did. It came out of them. So I find that an interesting proposition if we're stopping that in young people at a really key developmental stage where they've had fun and then they're told they've got to be serious. And I'm like, let's just keep being playful, shall we?
Or maybe the cavemen, maybe they started with, okay, we have 5 different kinds of rocks, but this one makes a mark and this doesn't. That curiosity, that inquiry that they have, and they play with the first few pebbles and then realize that one of them make a red mark, one of them make a white one or a yellow one. So, and it's nice that you started with mark making, that need for the mark making and that playfulness. So before we move on into why is this concept stripped out from our education system, let's first get a little bit more into this importance of mark making and playful learning, where we're not confining the students to have a final outcome of their work. Sometimes we always start with, okay, this is an artist that we will study, this is something that we will do, and this is the end product. And we sometimes reveal that product to the student and set up a benchmark even before they start playing with the medium and the material.
I really dislike that system of like, here is an artist, you will study them, and then you will make something like that artist did.
Yes.
No, you're not going to be able to do that. That's making children fail before they've even got anywhere.
Started. I was like, oh my God, I can't even do anything close to it. And then you shut them
exactly.
out.
So,
yes.
So why do we have a system which is striving for that? And I do believe it's because the arts, creative education cannot be boxed in. It cannot be in those neat boxes in an Excel spreadsheet that education systems and data-driven systems really love. We are anarchists. We are outside of that system. So yes. Why are we setting children up to try and create something of someone who spent 40 years of their life developing a practice and telling them to do it in 6 weeks? It makes no sense.
Yeah. So I was initially teaching in a university, then I moved into IB school, though I absolutely love the IB school system. But however, in the primary, I love the transdisciplinary aspect of teaching art, where you'd gone for a
Yeah.
walk, like you said, we would pick up something and try to explore and have inquiry weaved in. And this artist and studying and copying, it's necessary, I agree, but it could come at a much later stage. Or
Mm.
maybe it is, we come in and out of it. So
Yeah.
I would still follow that kind of a structure, more flexible studio space in my high school teaching classrooms. But how
Yeah.
would you do that? I'm curious to know that from other educators.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with graphic design, obviously people would just be like creating something on a computer.
Yeah.
Well, after years of working as a graphic designer and now in the advent of AI, so we're touching into a different subject, but I feel that, in order to not be simply regurgitating what's there already, we need to kind of put our own identity into the things we make. So I'm bringing students back to playfulness. So I ask them to make marks, to make something, to look, and it's almost like it's art school. It's art school stuff. I'm really passionate. My art school education gave me this kind of foundation of myself. And so I'm bringing that to my students on my graphic design course. So I want them to explore, to experiment. And sometimes it doesn't work. And that's fine. It's like failing forwards, isn't it? It's the kind of new term. And also I found it really difficult to get students to let go and be playful because of the conditioning they've had. So we ask, when we ask students, what did you make? It should really be, what have you discovered? What failed? Let's reflect on that.
That's a very nice way of putting it. Rather than expecting as teachers, what did you make? We are rather asking them, what did you discover?
Yeah.
So in that way, even a failure, you would learn something from it.
Yes. Yeah. And you wouldn't have that kind of stigma attached to, I'm no good at art. Which is kind of like, that kind of thing that goes on. And I've delivered a paper on that as well, but we might talk about that later.
No, I'm curious. Let's get started since you mentioned the paper. A little bit on that.
Yeah. So really, it was talking about. Let me just find my notes. Talking about how there is like a trio of aspects that happen for students in creative education. And those three positions are, you have a carer involved, so parents, whoever's legal guardian for the child. So a carer, and that could be whoever, the school, and then the young person. And I investigated this idea simply because of the inherent messages that I keep getting from students, from working in community workshops. The one thing they all say, or people always say, is, I'm no good at art.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. And any educator will tell you exactly the same thing. I'm no good at art. I can't draw. I can't do, and it's that position that I was interested in. Why is there that stigma attached to people? And I've kind of thought about that in great depth, and I thought it kind of links to the fact of the familial kind of pressure. So when you have your own family, the things that you enjoy, the things that you felt you were good at, goes back to your ego, doesn't it? Kind of like that kind of Freudian sense. So we talk to our young people, if we've had a family, we kind of say, I was no good at art.
Or similarly, it's curious that we have the same stigma around mathematics. And sometimes I feel it's very, cool to say, oh my God, I'm not good with numbers.
Always. Yeah. It's the same
like my
thing.
7-year-old would say that. I'm like, how much of numbers do you ever know, to be able to say that so early, right?
Yeah.
Give it
exactly.
chance.
Yes, exactly. And so where that's starting to be embedded, and like you said, right from a really early age, where does that come from?
Yeah.
And some people are a bit more intellectual about it and won't talk about that, but some people go, oh yeah, you're not doing well on maths because I wasn't good at maths. So
Yeah.
then the child then says, I'm not good at something because it's inherently within me.
Yeah.
And that idea, I think, is pretty strong. How does that happen? What does that do to people? It kind of perhaps is based in class as well.
Yeah,
So
with the
if you
peers,
didn't,
with the
yeah,
teachers, with the parents around, the caregivers, yes, everything.
yeah, yeah. So if you haven't had the opportunity to create at home or be messy, because to be fair, there's a lot of cleanliness that happens, isn't it? We can't be messy. So I've had to run workshops in different places, and I can see people go, oh good, because you can clean it up. And I'm like, where is the joy? Come on, and their kids are covered in stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. But it goes back to that kind of class side of things as well. If you've had opportunities, if you've had encouragement, my parents painted as a hobby. They loved it, and so just by having that around in your environment, they didn't ask me to become an artist educator,
Yeah.
but that is a foundation. So if in your household that doesn't happen, you don't read, there are no books around,
Exactly.
I think that kind of really can make a difference. And the opportunities as well. I became a graphic designer because I thought I would get paid more than being a fine artist. And part of me wishes I'd never had to make that choice.
Yeah.
So
True.
so those choices are real, and I'm first generation university as well. So my parents were working class. So from that point of
You
view,
had that
I can,
pressure that,
I can
I had to
yeah,
make use of that. So, like,
yeah,
for example, I did
yeah.
my graduation in economics, statistics, mathematics, imagine. And then I was like, oh my God, that's not for me. And there's also a pressure that comes when you are a kind of good student and you get good numbers in
Yeah,
schools. People expect you to get into mathematics or sciences.
yeah,
And then I realized
yeah,
much later on, well, that's not making me happy. And it was a very difficult
yeah,
situation for me and a decision for me to leave all of that behind, get into
yeah.
arts, and then also marry somebody who's a musician. That was like, come on.
That's a very
Yeah,
good choice. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
that whole,
sometimes, yeah, it's right that we should not be able to, it's really sad that we have to make those decisions very consciously. And there are so many
yes,
people who continue to do the general things
yeah,
just
yeah.
because they're too scared.
It's, yeah, fear is the biggest blocker in our lives. So that fearfulness, and then maybe that leads into being an artistic practice. I'm fearful of playing something.
Yeah.
I'm fearful of being on stage. I'm fearful of making a mark that doesn't suit the system, or thinking something differently.
Or not
It's very,
Instagram ready, because I also feel that the
oh
teenagers
yeah,
now, they would keep scrolling things and they say that, okay, the first picture I make has to be that ready, or else
yeah.
what have I done this week?
Well, exactly. It's the perfectionist, isn't it? Which is what we're teaching them. We're teaching them, here is Howard Hodgkin's work. Make Howard Hodgkin's work. Oh, it's not perfect. You're not going to get an A grade or a grade 9. You're done. And so then they're always seeking this perfection. And it's unattainable. Perfection isn't, it's a myth.
Yeah, and I guess that's the beauty of the subject art, that you can never be perfect. and
No,
and
no.
that's what keeps us going.
Yes, yeah. Once you realise that, then everything kind of flows away, and and that's kind of what I try and teach my students. It's not about being perfect. The idea, the basis of what you're thinking
Mm.
is amazing, and maybe you can't do it all. Maybe you need a team around you to get this idea off the ground, and thinking about collaborative working is kind of one of those areas that we don't give enough time to. we can't all do the whole thing ourselves.
Yes. And there is also this idea about that art is a very isolated, thing to work on. But I somehow feel it's not. I was again then trained from my bachelor's. I moved into animation filmmaking, which is, which opened a whole new world. And then I figured out that it's not one person's job, and everyone comes together with their own expertise to make something beautiful. It's a community work. So
it is,
and that I feel could, when I came to school, teaching in high school, getting students working together, and they never discovered doing something in groups for artwork. So even when
really
they have these independent projects, I try and make something out in a group, which, it could also be a display that they've worked on smaller objects. When they display it together, it just makes it so much more better and bigger and more beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're right. That's one key element, that we're not teaching children, young people. It's how to not be an island. There are times when your practice, you want to work individually, but last year I was working with another artist, and we were just playfully making, and we were talking about neural connections, and we were developing ideas around that, and we're going to pick this practice up again, but we were making huge paintings of mark making and things, but that was so joyful, and that embodied experience of moving around with someone else, it almost became performative. So there's that element to it as well. How do we, why do we make children sit in a seat? Because when I make art, I don't sit down, I stand up. So there's quite a few elements to this where I'm sure that we would be able to free people much more if we just stopped the kind of rules. I think that's why I mentioned anarchy.
Some more challenges. One is, how do we grade people when we're doing a group project? So one logical aspect that I face. So what I do in my 1 year is, one semester I try to make a group project, and then the next semester a more independent one, and then have the grades and assessments based around it, something like that. But that I feel is a challenge in the group projects. And on the other side, the counter side, I feel it's really, like you said, the energy that we give to each other, like artists working together, and we so much more influenced, and it helps us loosen up. That somehow is, we go missing when we're doing it as an isolated, independent practice.
Yeah, definitely. And you think about the system itself, you've got 40 minutes, I feel so sorry for my teaching fellows, 40 minutes to deliver something, and then maybe they have a double lesson. So, great. How can you develop that thinking, losing fear, developing practice and ideas, group working? It takes time. And I think that's why art and the creatives have been shuffled outside and have been put as an extra, because there's no time. Like in maths, I can teach you 2 + 2, boom, there's an answer, and it's a formula. But with the creative subjects, the mystery happens, and then all of a sudden there's a product. So mark making and thinking about how students can incorporate that, the looseness of ideas, and we kind of spoke about that failure element to education. It's not really built in. That kind of reflective practice is not built in. And perhaps as we get older for ourselves as well, we kind of think about, we avoid risk. And so that goes back to the kind of things I was talking about with the paper I delivered about this trio of carer, teacher and student. We're risk avoid, because we don't want to fail. And that's a huge thing. And maybe that's, part of where art in society, or the arts in society, could actually help a whole generation of people who are not pushing themselves or are risk adverse, or feel maybe in mental health ideas that they're not kind of doing what they should be doing, but don't know why and don't know how. So yeah, but
I also
yeah, so
feel
that's
here that this sense of instant gratification that has come with the mobile phone and the other devices, that you would
yeah,
ask a question and you instantly get the answer. You would
yeah,
order a takeaway pizza or a burger and you instantly get it. The thing about
yes,
waiting that I have
yeah,
experienced when I guess our generation was the last to have experienced that waiting because we had the
yes,
television. If we liked a particular show, we would have to
yeah,
wait for 1 week
yeah.
for the
I
next
know.
week to
Can
be
you
able to
imagine?
continue.
And also, you couldn't pause things. You can't pause it and
Yeah.
come back to it. So yeah, there is a kind of like theories around slow education and I've spoken to this with someone else as well about that. Art is a subject where you need to take things slowly, and I think that gets back to what we were talking about, allowing ideas to come together and for people to understand themselves before they come to present something or be a group or do something together. And we don't give young people that opportunity. So that denial, only the arts can give you that. So we're definitely missing something, aren't we? We're definitely not doing credit for those young people. We're kind of devaluing things in society as well. And then we've got that whole class thing going on. So yeah, it's really interesting.
So if we have to summarize these early years of experiences of children around arts, all of the arts, so what would be your suggestion to our educators or parents listening to the podcast? Like as caregivers, how can we make
Yeah,
this, learning spaces, this environment, even our home, our learning space need not be inside a classroom. It can be everywhere,
no,
you know. So, how can we encourage that for ourselves as well as
yeah,
for the children around?
yeah. I think losing fear.
Yeah.
I think parents are fearful of everything. So if they are translating that fear into their children, that you've got to think about that, and be aware of yourself and the things that you're having or bringing to that next generation. The parents are most worried about securing a career
Yeah.
for their children.
Yes.
Like, art isn't going to give them a career. And I gave the example of myself not being a fine artist, but choosing graphic design because, Apple had just made some amazing software. and I was at that stage of
And in
I'll
fact,
jump
that
on
is
this.
true. When I chose animation, part of it
Yeah,
was because of that reason versus going to an art school. And it's true in many ways because when we graduated, and my friends in graphic design, me's animation, and furniture design, accessories design, they instantly could get into, like freelancing jobs
yeah,
or into
yeah,
studios versus my friends who had taken up painting or sculpture had to
yeah,
have years of self-funded exhibition traveling, so that journey was slow, which is true. So we do understand where the parents come from, and
yeah,
I too have that number, like you said, it gets dropped down to 5, 6, 7 students. I would still say that
yeah,
visual arts has more numbers than music. So my husband is a
yeah,
music teacher in the higher grades, and most of the parents that would come and say, "Okay, but my child could be very talented and very passionate about music, but what is the career scope?" So,
and really, maybe we should be not focusing on that
yeah,
because as long as you have enough, I think it goes down to having more, doesn't it? More of everything, that instantaneousness you were talking about having the latest things because we're being influenced by certain people or areas in society. And actually, maybe we just need to take a step back and go, what will nourish me, and can I earn a living at it? And yes, you can. The fine art question, that's where the two-tier system comes in with the class and social mobility. If you have family money, people who can sponsor you to be able to do these things, it's very expensive being an artist. Yes. And the other day I was talking about the commercialism of it. Why do I have to pay to enter a competition where my artwork is going to be on the wall, and then people are going to pay to enter to see the work, and then maybe I might sell that work? But 9 times out of 10 you don't, because people purchasing art, it's not an instantaneous thing unless they're very wealthy. Yeah. You think about it, how do I feel about it, and you'll come back to it. So yes, that flow of kind of economic power within the arts is very different. But the visual sector, we're seeing that, aren't we? We are empowered by that. We have it on our phones. It's everywhere. So there is work. And people talk about AI in the future. Well, AI can't give you that kind of essence of what it is to be a creator. It can regurgitate stuff and do it not very well. I mean, and also, do we want that?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Another question of the arts. Is that actually what we want, or are we just accepting that?
Yes.
Well, let's be a bit more, anarchist about this and say we don't have to accept it, but we can use it as a tool. It's
I would
kind of
rather
like
have a robot do my household chores than to take away my profession. Because there's a joy in painting. I would never get a robot to do a painting.
No. And it would just be following a formula, and it could make the same painting over and over again. Yeah. Is that what you would like? Is that what people would find joyful? Because, that even the quality of taste, is it, someone having a reaction against a painting and saying, oh, that's horrible, or that's rubbish, or that's not, that reaction is actually, that's fine. That's what you should be feeling. You should feel something. And I think that's the part of the arts and creativity and education that we need to be getting back to. And I was kind of thinking, like, my area of graphic design, I want my students to be like a researcher, like a scientific researcher, dig deep. I want them to analyze and be critical, and I want them to experiment, like we were talking about play before. And also, I think the construction of things is really important, that materialism, making stuff, like engineers do or used to do. The software's got very sophisticated now. Yes. Yeah, but there's something in that. Does it work? The prototyping of things is very important for my students on my course. But, and then digging into this now, I'm teaching a module on AI, and I'm thinking about linguistics. And actually, as creators, are we any good at transferring that knowledge and those ideas effectively to make something that AI can assist us with? Obviously with your area of animation and things like that, you have to be able to write that kind of almost script and know what that character is going to be and do and feel. So the
narrative, that's the core of that. So as an artist, I feel there are two aspects of this. One is the joy that as a creator you experience in making that artwork. And on the other side, the experience of the person who's purchasing it or experiencing it, which is the utility aspect of it. So, of course, there is a value to that utility aspect, but there's also a value to the joy of that creation, which only the artist would experience and understand. And that value, I guess, is beyond a number, most of the time.
Yeah.
So in that space, how would you introduce AI to your students or integrate it in your curriculum?
So personally, I make artwork using augmented reality. So I use it to extend narrative. So I'm quite interested in repetition and reflection. And so I've done paintings around this. and then overlaid a narrative of a place where I've acted, where my GCSE drama came in very handy, and I've acted as that person and then overlaid it. So my painting becomes almost like the live QR code, and then you get some additional information from a moving image or whatever you wanted, really. But it kind of extends the idea about the sense of place, about what was happening, the story. So it simply lifts the paint into a new dimension. Rather than using augmented reality as a gimmick, which can be fun, I'm trying to discover something about using technology and tradition that could be interesting. So if I'm interested in that, I'm trying to get that interest in students. What could you make with AI? What could you achieve that could be relevant or interesting, not just that surface, here is an image, here is a mini clip movie that we can use on Instagram. Of course, that might be the bread and butter of one part of your life, but in the other part of your life, as a professional, you should keep those elements that are the joyfulness. And I think that's one thing I'm investigating with Dr. Lawrence Doobie-Rushby for artist educators. Like, how is your cup being fulfilled? You know, we have to deliver what the curriculum says we deliver. But as artist educators, are we enabling ourselves to feel that joy? Because that's the passion. That's where the passion lies in education, isn't it? If we're just delivering, draw a pepper, here's a pepper, there's a pepper, here's an A, or a 9, you know, where's the joy? We need to sort of
address the utility aspect of it and not the creative one. And so you're looking at AI more as an extension of what you've already created rather than a starting point, is it?
Yes. Yes, I think that's absolutely it. It's a tool like any other tool. You know, I mentioned about, you know, using Photoshop for the first time, you know, and everyone was like, wow, you know.
Wow, yeah,
and it's
I know.
You know, it's those different stages of creativity, and AI is no different. If we can just let go of the media bloom that's happened around it. You know, and I think people will have a fixed view now, and we go back to the family, and they will, you know, what are the families saying to young people, and how are they feeling about it? So, you know, having a creative curriculum can change, or not change views, but it can enable different views. Where else in the curriculum happens can we do that? Yeah, when you get to HE, you could discover philosophy and the classics, and you could do psychology. But thinking of secondary school education, do we really touch into those subjects? No, we don't. And art and creativity and drama and music are the only places where that expression is allowed to happen. So why are we wasting children's time by not giving them that?
Yeah. And it's again, so we can see that fear, the aspect of fear coming in. Again, people holding on into AI, and I have parents coming to me and saying, okay, in 10 years' time, how would my child who's taken up arts make a living? Because AI would be taking away their jobs. It's not that way. So again, we have that certain sense of fear with the boom in AI in the last couple of years. If we look at it as a tool, like you said, Photoshop, this is just another one, and we'll just live through it. That's fine. We'll survive that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you think about that, going back to our previous conversation about cave paintings and things like that. They still survive 65 million years later. You know, it's kind of like, or however long. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm afraid, but do you know what I mean? It's like they exist. You know, and
the power of mark making, imagine.
Yes, yeah, and keeping that offline and online as well, because when the electricity runs out, what will you have? That's a bigger question, isn't it? It's a bigger question. It's all well and good us thinking about AI and, you know, our technology-driven society, but people control that. it's like really big questions can be asked around this, and art and creative subjects are the only place you can do that, isn't it? I definitely feel like that. So it's definitely going back to the thing about parents. It is a worry for them. They're always thinking, will they have enough money? But we have to let that go, because our careers are portfolio careers now. We do different things, and we have to accept that's how it will happen. I think art education kind of, it prepares young people for the world that exists now, but also we should give them the capacity to imagine what might exist in the future.
In the future.
And that superpower is delivered by creativity.
And so in that aspect, what does the role of the school and the curriculum have to play? How can they be more accommodative, to have, or to support the parents, or the caregivers and the children?
Yeah, that's a really deep question, isn't it? Because it's bound up in so many different aspects.
So many financial, political, social.
Yeah. And I know that
one solution to it.
No, and there are colleagues who are working on an updated element to the national curriculum now through NSCAD. So, some of my colleagues there are working on this now, and they're working within parameters. Just like we were saying about students having to look at an artist, do this and create that. They're having to work within parameters. But if we could spread those parameters out or drop them, I just wonder what education could become. I mean, Ken Robinson was kind of always talking about this, wasn't he? About what are we doing to our young people? It's
what do you, as tricky. A member of NSEAD, what do you think is the solution around it? How can we make it a little bit more accommodative, keeping in mind the budget constraints and all the other aspects? What can the schools do best?
So I think leadership within schools needs to value their creative employees. They need to value children's ideas, because at the moment in schools, children quite often aren't even allowed to speak. So what is that going to mean for education? But I think really from an NCAD point of view, it's about supporting artist educators, because I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that kind of belief in a better culture, better society, a way of having that innovation and ideas-based futures comes from the freedom to learn in a creative way. So I see, myself and lots of my members on the council are trying to reach out, trying to build connections with other artist teachers. And I know there are other networks who are already doing this too. So, it is powerful. And we spoke about working together and collaborative working. So I think that isolation that creative people might feel, I think that's the way we bring ourselves together as a magnet. And then we become more powerful, don't we? We become more powerful. We have more voice. We can talk about this stuff, and NSCAD influence papers and political agendas anyway. So playing part of that is really what I was interested in too. It doesn't become an empty
art educators a voice, a place, a sense of community.
Yes.
In fact, I'm glad you mentioned it, because the reason why I started the podcast was the same reason. I really craved for, a community, for me to grow, to have the validation, around certain concepts and certain ideas that I would have. So, and yes, I feel as an artist so much better when I connect with another artist and we're talking about issues, even though we don't get a solution overnight, but we can share that empathy and a little bit, understand each other and practice a few examples in our own classrooms in our own way.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right, empathy is part of that human nature, isn't it? So our emotional selves, and I've been very influenced by, they've passed away now, by John Parr, who run an emotional assertiveness program. And that has really built a lot of these ideas that I'm having around, how our emotions can affect our lives. Fear, guilt, happiness, sadness, anger, they're all the elements that artists use to describe, to discuss, to explain, to try and work out. There's so much working out and thought and theory that goes into these things. So yeah, you're right. Empathy, emotional assertiveness.
Yeah. That's great work that's happening, actually. And also the sense of community that you said. Sometimes it's great to have the educators come together, and sometimes it's also nice to have these more community workshops, which I remember doing it in my last school, inviting parents over for the weekends, and paint something along with their child. And they've shared, they've never experienced the joy together. Of creating something together. So I've run a similar thing. I've run a workshop making clay figures. You can make anything you like, and the grandma would be stood back, and I was like, "There's a seat there. You sit down with your grandchild. You make something." And then it comes, "I'm no good at art," and I said, "I bet you are," and I said, "You show your grandchild that you can make something." And I think that was so powerful. They made an amazing dog. I was like, "That's amazing!" And then the grandchild felt really proud. The grandparent felt proud, and they contributed to a collective ceramic display that I created out there. So those things are important. And you're right: connection, community, opportunity. How am I going to reach those parents? Is my next big question. How am I going to reach them and tell them that their creative child does have a really great future? And this again comes back to the leadership that you were mentioning. And these are small things that the school leadership can imbibe in their school culture. And this sometimes may not be so, financially heavy in that way.
It's a willingness. It doesn't even need a financial input. It's a willingness, isn't it? If schools are part of communities, we engage communities through the children. Most of my great friends I met at the school gates, with my children. So those communities live beyond school. So why don't we just have that kind of idea that's where ideas and exchanges happen? That's the purpose of education.
So now we have this presentation by Tina, and we'll go through all that we discussed. She'll highlight a few points and some things that we can actually take back as an educator, as an artist, and as a parent also, right? So yes, over to you, Tina.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So art is not an extra. So we're reimagining creativity at the heart of education. So I'm starting with a few provocations here. Art's not an extra. It's part of the intellectual infrastructure through which young people learn to interpret, question and reshape their world. So this central proposition should not be understood as just an enrichment activity added to education and to the supposed essential subjects. Art's a way of thinking, investigating, communicating and making knowledge, which I think is very different from the standard subjects within UK education. The problem begins with strongly in secondary education, where we've spoken about young people's relationship with creative practice is becoming progressively restricted. So the ecology around the learner and the way they understand creative practice can be influenced by family or carer, school and curriculum and the wider society. My main argument is that art is not an extra. It is part of this infrastructure. And I framed this against three ecologies. Familial ecology, So how do parents and carers influence the perceptions and value and the viability of creative subjects? Institutional ecology, how do curriculum structures, timetable and subject hierarchies enable or restrict creative choice? And then there's a pedagogical ecology as well. How might art education operate in a space of resistance, regeneration, and how does it give agency in alternative ways of knowing? So young people don't simply lose interest in art, their relationship with creativity is shaped by the system of influences. So what conditions make choosing art possible or impossible? So I spoke about earlier, my son was not able to do GCSE music because only 5 other people wanted to study the subject at GCSE. Even though they had a full-time music teacher, that was still off the cards for them. They had to select something else within the timetable allowances. So perhaps their dreams, what about the other 4 children? Perhaps their dreams stopped there and perhaps their family couldn't afford to carry them on into a musical career. This is where the system of who gets to make and create art becomes a conversation around finance and currency. Moving on from this, there's a cultural message circulating between 3 positions, the carer, the school and the young person. So the message here is, it leads me to question what is the value of art and how does this trio of circumstances affect that? These 3 perspectives of internal, how does the learner understand their own creativity and their creative identity? And external, how do schools and parents and curriculum structures employ narratives and position creative subjects? And the sociological as well, how British society more broadly constructs ideas of usefulness, of intelligence, of employability and value with that culture capital. It's not whether children possess creative capacity, it's about conditions that enable the capacity to survive and develop. Carers and families exert enormous influence over young people's choices, sometimes consciously, but often through subtle messages embedded over years. Parents want their children to succeed, and of course they do. But what does success actually mean? Stigma towards the arts shows a gap in class, education and opportunity to be even wider, according to researchers Wilson and Maguire. It's not simply personal, it's social, it's cultural, it's political. It shapes how families engage with schools and how children come to view their own creative potential. Many teachers in arts education have heard this countless of times. I'm just not good enough. Such a simple phrase, but it has such deep psychological weight. This belief, I suggest, is passed from one generation to the next. It often traces back to a formative moment, that one teacher's comment, that failed grade, the sense of public embarrassment. Parents can unintentionally project art anxiety onto their children, and so stigma around the creative expression becomes intergenerational, a kind of emotional inheritance that limits a child's sense of possibility. The trio of carer, child, teacher becomes a cycle of submission, silence, perpetuating an unconscious stigma against creativity. So art education can value itself because artistic practice enables particular forms of inquiry. Look at the ecology of resistance and regeneration. We could define art because it improves attainment elsewhere. Art helps maths, creativity helps employability, drawing improves cognition. And we should be thinking about how art education has value in itself, because artistic practice enables particular forms of inquiry. It's sophisticated. It learns through observation, uncertainty, experimentation, failure, reflection, interpretation, iteration, and communication. Eliot and Ensor kind of talks about this in The Arts of Creation and Mind. They argue that the arts develops a form of thinking that other disciplinary disciplines do not necessarily cultivate. So the judgment and interpretation, the attention to nuance, It's really important. The creative subjects can do that. And dealing with ambiguity and recognising multiple solutions and possibilities. The artistic knowing is itself the legitimate form of cognation. And of course, Herbert Reed, that great educator, talks of that aesthetic and creative development should be fundamental to the development of the whole person. The artist teacher becomes important. We should be saying, I don't already know the answer, we're going to investigate it. Reframing that question is really key to arts education. It's a substantially different from transmission module of education. It connects you to the work around ideas of education, of being a teacher, and it makes the teacher more of a convener, a practitioner, a chief learner, which links to Bauhaus School of Knowledge. The studio then becomes much more of a physical room. It becomes a pedagogical system based upon making, dialogue, critique, reflection, and remaking. I'm suggesting that artistic ways of learning have something to offer education more broadly. So that the artist teacher's role is crucial in this. Educators are practicing artists themselves and should hold on to that. They model what it means to live creatively, to take risks, and to commit to making. So interdisciplinary project-based learning sounds very official, but the education in Britain is seen as fragments of individual learning and doesn't share any crossovers. So do we ever ask young people what experiences did they bring to the room? What topics are they concerned about? Climate change, AI, migration, misinformation, identity and inequality. In our education, the starting point is you. What views do you hold, and are they reasonable? Do you know where they came from? And then this leads into the purpose I can see of project-based learning in my area of graphic design. We want to research like social scientists. We want to analyse like a critique. We want to experiment like a scientist. We need to construct like an engineer. We communicate like a writer, and we speculate like an artist. Artistic inquiry can become one of the mechanisms through which curriculum can reconnect itself. The theorist Pamela Bernard talks of this in their book, Why Science and Art Creativity Matters, reconfiguring STEAM for future education. Art is not an extra. What becomes distinctly human in the age of AI? So at a moment when artificial intelligence is increasing, it performs acts previously associated with human creativity. Art education becomes not an educational extra, but a means of which learners can develop agency. Learning is not simply to consume the world they inherit, but to question and interpret and remake it. I propose that rather asking art to justify its place within the existing educational system, we can use artistic practice to question what education itself should be for. You know, what does it tell us? What does society tell us art is worth? In the curriculum, where does education place creativity? Is it at the heart of everything, or is it that added extra? In pedagogy, how does artistic practice enable learning? Hands-on joy, materialism. And also, where does agency come in? What can a learner question, imagine, or make? And how can we make them have agency in their own learning? And the future, what becomes distinctly human in the age of AI? We need art because artistic practice develops distinctive ways of thinking, and they are educationally valuable in themselves. If creativity is a development human capacity rather than a specialist artistic talent, why has art been positioned at the peripheral of a subject within education? We spoke earlier about Ken Robinson, drawing about his ideas that we should nurture rather than undermine creativity. And also the great John Dewey as well, art as experience. He proposes that art is not separate from human experience. Aesthetic experience is fundamental way in which people encounter and construct meaning. It's a powerful challenge. And obviously Pamela Bernard's point about STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. And when we put those things together, I immediately think of Leonardo da Vinci, but I don't know about you.
Yeah,
there are other examples.
Yes.
Yeah. Education not only prepare young people for a world that exists, but it should give them a capacity to imagine the world that might exist next. Thank you.
Oh, that was fantastic. And in a very nice way, we've touched upon all that we spoke of and all the real life examples. So thank you so much. And for you now, especially, we have a rapid fire round. Okay?
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So here goes the first question. Play or purpose?
Play.
Failure or perfection?
Oh, always failure. Choose failure. You learn more.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Yeah.
Structure or freedom?
Freedom within structure.
A method in madness.
Yes.
Yes. Solo making or collaboration?
There's a space for both, but I think people need people.
Yeah, yes. I guess that's the best of, a curriculum that we as teachers can enable in our own classroom. If we have some mini projects that could be more collaborative and one that could be like self-aligned. Yeah. So one material that every child should experience in the context of mark making.
Oh, a stick or a piece of chalk.
Yeah. Okay. A stick on sand, like all natural material, like outdoor, so that we're not confined to, art material.
That's it. Dragging it along behind them on the pavement, making a mark, looking at that mark. It's very powerful. Very powerful.
Okay. One thing that you would remove from the present art education.
The barriers to stop artists, teachers from getting creativity into that classroom. From personal experience, from their own personal experience.
Okay. One thing that you would add back to the classroom.
Only one?
More. Go on.
All of the facilities, kilns, textile rooms, printmaking, drama studios, a space where you can be messy. That's what I'd add back in.
Yeah, that one studio space where you can work with multiple medium material and make mess. You're not scared of that. You can remove the fear. Yes.
Yeah.
And this kind of encapsulates all that we were talking about.
Yeah, it does really, yeah.
One word you wish would disappear from education.
Well, the concept would be fear, but the one word was I can't.
That's very important. For me, I was thinking for the time being, financial constraints.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do about that though.
Yeah. Yes. But yes, that's right. You have a solution to it, something that we could address. Yeah. And a word you wish would appear more often. As teachers, as educators, and as leadership, we're talking about it more often.
I am creative.
Because all of us need to be creative around the challenges that we are presently facing.
Yeah. And that creativity can be making food. It could be gardening. It could be anything. We're all creative. So Yeah. Not
Fantastic.
just
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really fun. And the way
Oh,
the episode moved, I really, really enjoyed speaking to you around all of these practical concepts and challenges that we are facing as parents, as caregivers, as a student. Also, because I also feel that we as educators, we're also students within the classroom, learning different
yes.
material, medium, based on the requirements of the student. So,
Yes.
yes, I'm really glad
Yeah.
that we touched upon all of this. And it was also solution oriented. We were not talking mostly about the challenges around the financial
No.
constraints, but something
Yeah.
that is still possible to address as educators and as school leadership.
Yes, definitely. It's been lovely speaking with you, Debjani. Thank you.
And I hope to meet you in person sometime very soon.
That would be great. I'd really enjoy that.
Yeah. Have a great day. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.